Hello, and welcome to the triumphant return of my top 5. Joking aside, I was trying to decide what sort of companion video to do this week, because long-term viewers of the channel will know that every week, alongside the normal Magic the Gathering videos, I do a couple of non-Magic the Gathering things. So I've just done a video on, or just recorded a video as I was recording this, on programming connected to, or programming languages connected to the IT Wildcard series. And I was trying to think of something else to do that didn't involve me leaning over the desk doing filming, because unfortunately an hour spent on a previous week's video of leaning over a desk flicking through a magazine for nearly an hour, I think, gave me a rather bad neck. So I don't want to repeat that, not for a little while anyway. I just need my neck and shoulder to recover, and that's sort of been compounded by all the shoveling that's been going on for the last few days because of the snow. So woe is me. So I thought it'd be interesting to resurrect a series, see how we do. So way back in 2022 was the last time I did my top 5 episode. It was 1980 debut albums, so a little bit niche. The series is interesting. Like, some of the episodes have done quite well, relatively speaking, compared alongside other videos. One that has done well, the best one, most viewed one, is John McGeoch Guitar Work. That was a really cool one. And 90s PC games, actually looking down the list. I've done a couple of films-based ones, and that's what today is. I'm going to do, this episode's going to be my top 5 films that feature dystopian futures. But I was looking at the other 2 films, which was rather amusing. So one is my top 5 sci-fi films, which actually had one of the films that I'm going to mention here on the list. And the other one, which did amuse me, is my top 5 films that make me smile. I don't think I would say any of these films make me smile. They make me think, and I've watched them numerous times. And how I set this up was what caused this sudden interest in sort of doing this was I went on a bit of a Alex Garland jag over the last week, and I was listening to a lot of interviews where he was talking about Ex Machina. Now, I'm not going to be talking about Ex Machina here, but I'm going to be talking about one of the other films he was involved with. And yeah, if you can track down any interviews with Alex Garland, track him down. He's a really interesting guy when he talks, in the right context. It depends who's interviewing him. But yeah, there's some really interesting interviews out there, particularly the ones I enjoy are around the time of Ex Machina. But also there's other associated ones I've heard him interviewed where there was one which I think was a podcast, and I'll try and find some links actually and put them in the description for Alex Garland stuff as well, seeing as I've mentioned him. But I thought because of that, it would be interesting to explore. So, like I say, my top 5 films which have dystopian futures, because Dredd, one of the ones he was involved with, has a pretty dystopian future. We'll talk about obviously what it's based on. Beyond, obviously, with these series, what I tend to do is beyond me going, these are awesome things, you should check them out. Obviously, several of these films are pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, 2 of them are pretty violent. Well, no, actually, how many? Probably all of them are pretty violent in one way or another. But they are pretty grim, and not everybody likes these sort of films. So, if I'm not saying, you have to listen to this episode. If it's something you're not interested in, then yeah, that's fine. And maybe it's just enough to hear a little bit about them, even if you don't feel like checking them out. But yeah, I think if you if you can handle dystopian futures, then definitely these 5 are well worth checking out. And I'm going to do them roughly in the order. No, they're in the order that I saw them originally, which actually does correspond to, I believe. Now, well, actually, one is out of order in terms of when they were originally released. And we'll get on to why that is in a moment, because there's an interesting sort of story around all of that. And, the fact that I was in the UK at the time and a few other things. So, first one I'm going to mention is Mad Max, the original Mad Max. I like the sequels, Mad Max 2, Beyond the Thunderdome. I'm not sure how much of Fury Road I've actually seen. I'm trying to remember now whether it was on... I know I've seen big sections of it, but I'm not sure why. And I can't remember if I watched it on a plane... when I was travelling on a plane, and I sort of fell asleep because it was like a overnight flight. It's quite possible that could be the reason. But anyway, so that's interesting. So filmed on a budget of 400,000 Australian dollars, earned more than 100 million worldwide, and set the Guinness record for the most profitable film. So I'm assuming that must be percentage profit, maybe? Not sure. Anyway, because I just noticed that. As always, I've just dove into this episode with very little preparation. Thought about it, created a list, went in. It's the only way to be, I think. So... as I said, everything on here, I'm going to say, very cool film, although each one might be for a different reason. And I'm thinking back to when I first saw this. So it was released in 79, so I definitely didn't see it then. I can remember it being advertised, for the film run, and I'm not sure what the original classification in the UK was. I'm assuming it was 18. I don't know if it really says anywhere on these. I've never really looked into this, actually, whenever I've looked up films. Not sure, actually. Yeah. I've sort of digressed there, but it's, so 80, let me think about this. I'm trying to think when we got our first video player. I got a feeling it was 82. And I remember getting this out fairly early on when we had it. It was one of the first films we rented. So how it used to work is, it was pretty cool, actually. My dad would just give me some money and go say, oh, go down to the local rental store and just rent, two films, a couple of films, I think. So, yeah, I just go down there, and he really wouldn't stipulate what I got. Just I think as long as he liked at least one of them. So we, go down there and then we'd watch them over the weekend, and then we'd sort of return them Monday evening, or because at that point I didn't have a car when we first started doing this. So I just started work in 81, and I didn't have my car till 83. And so I think either I'd take them back. I'm trying to think how they went back, actually. Maybe my dad took them back. I know my mum used to walk down the village quite a bit. And I did as well. So I got a sneaking suspicion what we did is got my mum to just go in there and take them back on a Monday morning. because you do like one of those weekend rentals. And so, yeah, this was early on in that rental period. There was this little rental store over the top of Forest Row Village Hall, and one of the owners of it was actually a brother of someone I used to go to school with, actually, back in the day. So yeah, but it's cool. I'm trying to think the bit in the film that really sticks in my mind. On this. Yeah. Just looking down here, the story, because it's been a while since I've looked at this. Like at the time, when we were watching it, I do remember, like, obviously having it over the weekend, we watched it multiple times, and also probably we rented it multiple times as well. And I'm trying to remember, we must have had, ultimately, I'd suspect we had a copy of it in the house eventually, once, buying VHS tapes, because it would have been on VHS, was a thing. Because, of course, back then, buying videos would have been eye-wateringly expensive. So, of course, you just rented everything. And I think there's that cool bit where he's first shown his new police car, and then that sort of first time he sort of takes it out, I think, which is that later on in the film? Yeah, there we go. The Pursuit Special. So the first time he sort of takes that out on the road, that's the bit. Music by Brian May. Not the same Brian May. I was going to say, I don't remember that. Yeah. But yeah, cool. And interestingly, this one does have dystopian action film in the genre description. Most of them just say sci-fi, whatever, and then it mentions dystopian further down. So next up we have Blade Runner, another film that we rented from the local video rental store, because this came out at the cinema in 82. It may not have been out on VHS until, a couple of years later, possibly 1 or 2 years later. I love this film. This is probably one of my favourite, well, it is one of my favourite sci-fi films, and which is why it made my top 5 sci-fi films. And this is the common link between this video and a previous top 5. So they feature in both. And yeah, I've just watched this so many times, both originally when we rented it, and then probably got it out numerous times. And then I own several different versions of it. VHS, I've probably got a couple of versions on videotape, I suspect. But I've also got a couple of DVD versions as well. I've got a flippy disc version of it. And I'm trying to remember what the difference between the two is. I think they're the two sort of main versions of the film. In terms of one with narration and one without. But then I've also got one that was released around the same time as, I don't know if it mentions it here. Okay, versions. So I've got, I don't know if it's a variant of this. I saw a picture of the box and it doesn't, I've got it in a metal box, but my box looks slightly different. But I'm pretty sure, or I've got a variant of this, put it that way. Because it was definitely bought after 2007. It was bought after I moved out to Nova Scotia. So after 2000 and sometime 2000, wouldn't have been 2009 because it was late 2009 when I came out here. So 2010, sometime there, I think. I've got a metal box with all these different sort of versions in it. But like I said, I've also got one, and I reckon it must be possibly a version of maybe this. But it's got the domestic cut with the narration, and then I'm pretty sure, like I say, one without. I don't know if it's, I can never remember, like with the international cut, in addition to the scenes, whether that's got the narration. Oh, there we go. So the director's cut had the removal of Deckard's voice. So yeah, that's, so the flippy disc version I've got has either got the theatrical and the international cut on it, or the theatrical and the director's cut. But then this final cut one, this sort of DVD aluminium box set thingy that I have, has lots of different variations of the film on it. Yeah. And I should dig out, I don't know how many, like as an episode of My Life in Objects, I got a fascinating book. I think I must have done an episode on that. I'm just surprised I haven't. So I'm just off camera. I'm just, I don't see that. Yeah, not sure. But I've got a pretty interesting book about, the making of Blade Runner and everything all around it. So if I haven't done already, what I'll do is I'll check through after I finish this video any other content I think that's relevant that I've done videos about to anything I discuss here. I'll include links in the description. And then what I'll do is somewhere further down the line, anything interesting I think that I stumble across that would be worthy of a My Life in Objects episode, particularly Blade Runner stuff, I will dig out. Yeah, I think of all the films I've got here which feature dystopian futures, this is definitely my favourite. And we have The Matrix. So I don't remember seeing this at the cinema when it came out. This came out in 1999. So I'm really trying to rack my brains. I'm trying to even wonder whether I didn't actually see it till they showed it on TV. That's quite possible. I do have a copy of this on DVD. Actually, funny story. So there's only been 2 instances where I've accidentally bought the same thing twice. One was a copy of The Matrix. What happened was I had a copy of it. I bought fairly soon when it came out on DVD. And then I think it must have been several years later, I just had forgotten that I had a copy with it. Happens sometimes, a copy of it. And there was a copy, I think, in some like bargain bin thing. And I just impulse bought a copy of it. I think it was way after, the 2 sort of follow-up films. So I saw The Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions at the cinema, definitely. I remember going to see them. And it was really funny. Was it The Matrix Reloaded? One of them, it got to the end of the film, and the film finished, and there was just complete silence in the cinema. There was like people were just sitting there trying to get their head round the story. Like there was just this eerie silence. It was the oddest thing. Like, yeah. I was doing it myself, just sitting there, okay. And I just can't remember which one of these it was. But yeah. Yeah. So, sometime around, I think just after this was released, which was 2003, like I said, I saw one of these in a bargain bin and bought it, and then when I was having a clean out, I think probably before I came to Canada, I'd like, oh, I have 2 copies of this. And the other one it happened with, which is a CD, was, it's gone now. I just remembered it before I did the video. I should have written it down. It's Surfacing by Sarah McLachlan. Yeah, so that was slightly different. I went down a sort of singer-songwriter rabbit hole. I was listening to Sarah McLachlan and a number of other artists, and it was during a period where I was sort of exploring certain genres. So it would have been sometime in the 2000s. And then just when I think so when did I first come out to Canada on a visit? 2008. Yeah, 2008. So 2008, first time I came out here, I, through sort of various online conversations in the lead up to me coming out, I had, it became apparent that my, then to be wife, wasn't my wife at the time, was also into Sarah McLachlan, and we were playing a lot of the stuff through. Would it have been early Spot? There was some reason why I decided to order a copy of the CD again. I can't remember why. And then I ordered it, forgetting I'd been on a sort of partial Sarah McLachlan jag before. So I bought one of her CDs, which was Surfacing, way back. And I think I bought a Fiona Apple CD and a couple of other female singer-songwriters. And then through sort of rediscovering her a bit later, I then decided to do some infilling and bought all her earlier stuff, including that album, because I'd forgotten I had it. So that's the only time I've ever done that, is with The Matrix and with Sarah McLachlan. And ultimately what I did is when I came over on my first visit, my wife didn't have a copy of the CD, so I basically gave her my second copy. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, cool film. I'm trying to think as well, like after I watched it, what inspired me to watch or go to the cinema to see. Yeah, there was, what was the name of that guy? Let's just bring this up as a secondary link. Oh, here we go. Yeah, John Woo. So when did he start becoming... So 86. Yeah. 86. I don't even remember what films. Yeah, we've gone off on a sidetrack here, but this is part of the fun of doing this, because this is also, you know, about what it makes me think about when I think about these films, beyond just, yep, the film's really cool and I really need to watch it again, but also what did it inspire me to watch. When did I watch Face Off? That must have been... That came out before The Matrix, didn't it? Yeah. Hard Target. Yeah, a lot of martial arts stuff. But yeah, for some reason it does. It just makes me think of that. I don't know. I'd have to rewatch a lot of his films and find out whether he was using similar cinema techniques. But it just does make me think of that. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Bullet Ballet. That's as well. Yeah, Mexican standoffs. Bullet Ballet. That's cool. I've not heard that. I've not heard that term before. Oh dear. Mission Impossible 2. Does it have a list of his? Oh, here we go. Let's have a look. I remember that one. That's a weird film. Yeah. I actually really enjoyed the premise of the film. I saw that at the cinema, Paycheck. I was going to rewatch it. I think you can. It's on one of the free streaming platforms. It got negative. Oh, it was a commercial success. Wow. Okay. Following it, he would not direct another feature film for 20 years. Wow. But I really thought this is an interesting premise, this idea of taking like reverse engineering to the next level. And then that also I found it to be an interesting sort of exploration of self-fulfilling prophecies, in that I got to the point in the film where I'm thinking, well, if you've got this what do you call it? Yeah, you've got this device that is able to sort of predict the future. Is it doing that, or just knowing that that's going to happen? You've created this self-fulfilling prophecy. So that was one of the takeaways from the film. Is it predicting the future, or is it just shaping the future? So yeah, there were a couple of things in it, but I found the film itself not to be great. I enjoyed it, but I found that beyond those two things I've sort of mentioned, the idea of reverse engineering and the fulfilling prophecy thing, it was pretty sort of, some of it was pretty tenuous, I think. Was that the one where the dialogue's particularly awful? What was the critical response? Let's have a look. I was trying to remember before I looked at this. Yeah, it has an intriguing premise. Okay, so is it Philip K. Dick then? Okay, I should track that down if it's based on a short story. Oh, he says, at least it was nice with working with Ben Affleck. I don't know, maybe I found that the sort of on-screen chemistry of Ben Affleck and Uma Thurman didn't really work for some reason. And I'm wondering if was it around the time that I'd seen Uma Thurman in Kill Bill, maybe, I don't know. Sometimes, you get that where seeing an actress in another role that has a real, like, lasting impression on you sort of ruins it when you see her in another role. So anyway, it's an interesting rabbit hole there. But yeah, I mean, worth checking out. Just as a side note. So, okay, so Paycheck by Philip K. Dick. It'd be interesting at what point it deviates from the story. And what the story makes you think about. So moving on. So this is probably the most challenging film on my list. So Clockwork Orange. A lot of people find this very disturbing. I think it does a really good job of sort of presenting a dystopian futuristic Britain, actually. 1971 this originally came out. So there's a whole load of controversy, and from my sort of UK lens, this is the one I'm most aware of. So pretty much after it was released, there was a number of high-profile events that occurred that people started to draw links between the film and certain crimes, basically murders. And so, there was a whole load of fallout from that. As it says here, there was lots of threats made to the family, to Kubrick's family. And so he took the step of actually withdrawing the film. It was withdrawn at his request by Warner Brothers in 1973. So for a long, long time, the film was unavailable in the UK. Not because it had been banned, but just because it had been withdrawn from release. That's my understanding. So they never got around to sort of, grouping it in with the whole video nasty thing from 1984. I don't believe it was on any list because it just wasn't available. And I don't think it was formally available on video. According to this, it was re-released theatrically on VHS and DVD after 1999, after Kubrick died. So my connection to the film, and in terms of how I ended up watching it, because of the fact that you couldn't really watch it in the UK, and I'm trying to rack my brains and think whether did it turn up as some sort of dodgy copy around the time of the whole video nasty explosion or moral panic in the UK in 1984 or whenever it was. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure. But what I do know is sometime prior to this date, a friend of mine who was big into collecting obscure films or films that were not readily available, and interesting cuts of films, he lent me a copy of this before it was theatrically re-released again. So it's pretty cool to see it. So I saw it a few times then. Yeah, it's pretty dystopian, and but it has to make the list because of that. I think it's just, to me, and just because of the references and where it was filmed, and the fact that it's set in Britain, really sort of hammered home some of the sort of sort of morality, psychology, societal references, and I've never owned a copy of this, although interestingly enough, it wasn't that long ago actually. It must have been I say that long ago. It's always difficult, isn't it, post-COVID, to remember time, I find. But at some point probably around the start, I can't remember whether it was COVID, But my wife, who'd never seen it, said, "Oh yeah, I think I'll give it a go because it, now it's just readily available." And I don't know what the situation was in North America. I haven't read here, but obviously, you can pick up copies of it probably at your local library in Canada. And so my wife came back with a copy of it and said, "Oh, do you fancy rewatching this?" And I said, "Well, yeah," but I said, you might. So I think we got literally within about 10 minutes of the film. She said, "Oh, I don't think I want to watch this anymore." Switched it off. So I never bothered rewatching it again. The other cool thing was around the same time that my friend lent me his copy of the pre-theatrical release, so however he'd obtained that. He also lent me a copy of the original Wicker Man, which had been at that point was imminently going to be released in a sort of recut version using sections which had previously been unavailable. And yeah, he had a sort of he had a review copy actually, because he had I'm trying to remember now, he was doing a lot of writing for the jackets of DVDs, and he had a copy of that. And then I've got a copy somewhere of the soundtrack that they did at the time when they released that, which is really cool. He gave me a copy on like a CD, like a burnable CD, which I think he had two he was given for review, and he gave me one, which is really nice of him actually. I got a signed copy of his book, Your Face Here, which is a book about sort of certain British cinema films. Get Carter's in it. His name's, I don't really mention many people's names on videos just because a lot of them are friends, and I don't want to put names out there just for various reasons. But it's no problem here because he's sadly no longer with us, but he's pretty well known in certain circles. His name's Simon Wells. He's not the director Simon Wells, who's a relative of H.G. Wells. This is a different Simon Wells, but the Simon Wells I'm talking about wrote the book Your Face Here. He's done did a book on oh crikey, so his name has escaped me. Did a book on Charles Manson actually, and had success later in life. He released music as well, which was very well received, and was actually touring quite a bit, in the lead up to, sadly, when he passed away, 2021 I think it was. So yeah, he was very, very generous guy, and I got to check out a lot of stuff thanks to him. And it was very sad when he passed away, but it's nice because I got all these memories of when we used to hang out, because I met him when I was in my teens, and then we sort of hung out on and off up until really I left the UK. So that would have been from about 79, 80 through to about 2010, and then I kept in touch with him over Facebook as well. And no, I had no idea he was ill. So yeah, came as a bit of a shock. Well, it came as a lot of a shock. But that was how I got to watch A Clockwork Orange. So yeah. And then finally, this one. So this is the most recent one I've watched. When did I watch it? I reckon I saw this on a plane trip. I must have done. I do have a copy of it now. I bought one about a year ago just because I wanted it. What happened was I'd seen Ex Machina. Yeah, I remember what happened. I'd seen Ex Machina on the... It's coming back to me now. I'd seen Ex Machina on a plane trip, and I started to. I'm just trying to remember what had happened, but it then registered that Garland had been involved in this film. Was this the film where he produced it and he sort of directed it, but his name isn't in the credits for doing that, but it's recognised that he did actually end up directing it? I think that's right. I think that's yeah. Alex Garland completed the film. So let me go into this. I was just trying to remember. So when did Dredd come out? In 2012. I haven't seen Annihilation yet. I keep meaning to watch that. Ex Machina 2014. So I think that's the course of event with that one, is that I saw that on a plane trip. And then I rewatched it on one of the streaming services. And then I rewatched this on a stream, or watched it for the first time on a streaming service. And then I decided I wanted a copy of this. It was going cheap on Amazon. So yeah, got that. I really enjoyed it. I mean, super violent. There's a lot of reasons why I enjoy this film. One, it was, I've probably told this story so many times now, but the original Dredd that came out with Sylvester Stallone, I actually quite enjoy, but it was funny because when it first came out on video, I was working at Radio Rentals. This would have been in the late 90s. And my boss, we were working on this helpline. It was a Saturday morning. It was just us. There's only 3 of us, I think, in there. We used to go in and work on a Saturday mornings, supporting the showrooms for if the tills broke down. And anyway, it was a quiet day. There wasn't much going on. Saturdays wasn't very busy often, but you needed someone there in case the things kicked off. There were normally 6 people on the team, so we like half-staffed it on a Saturday, and then we'd get a day off in the week. We just each pick a different day and have a day off, in exchange for working at the weekend. We weren't paid extra, but we just got another day off in the week. And so he goes, "Do you want to see the new Dredd film?" So we go out and we have a whip round for the rental. I think back then probably the rental charge was about £3. So we each chipped in £1, and he went and got this film, and we're watching it on this TV that we pulled in from the boardroom, and the flipping office manager comes in, and we're watching. Yeah, this original Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone on this TV. She didn't bat an eyelid at the time. I don't know why she didn't say anything. So anyway, on the Monday, everybody got this like anonymous. Yeah, it was interesting because it didn't point the finger at anybody, but it just said, "Can we remind everybody that personal, something like, I can't remember how it was worded, but personal use of company property is not permitted." It was some weird wording, very, very vague. Didn't call us out by name, but we knew like what it was all about. And then people were going, "What's all this about? Why has this suddenly come round?" And I think eventually people heard the story. I didn't tell anybody at the time, but it was pretty amusing. So whenever I see this version of it, which is much more dystopian and much more violent, it makes me think of that. And the other thing that it makes me think about, which is really nice, is when I was growing up, I remember both of my brothers were allowed, like they had a magazine allowance, you get monthly, I I think it was monthly. I'm not sure whether 2000 AD came out weekly or not. Can anybody that remembers 2000 AD when it originally came out in the comments section remind me of how regularly it was released? But there were 2 magazines, and we had in the house. I was probably a bit older by then, so I didn't get it offered to me. But my 2 younger brothers were allowed a subscription to a magazine each, and it was cool because they read it, and then we read each other. They'd read each other's magazines, and I'd read them. And my middle brother had this comedy one called Bananas. But my youngest brother, bizarrely, had 2000 AD, and that obviously got Judge Dredd in it. So it just reminds me, this film, of that. We'd sort of Sunday morning when we do our music hanging out, where the 3 of us would hang out, listen to music when we weren't fighting or anything like that, and listen to music and stuff, which I've talked about numerous of times. We'd also sit there reading these comics, and I can remember sitting with them, and we'd be reading 2000 AD whilst listening to probably Sabbath or something, or the soundtrack to, or not the soundtrack, that really cool music inspired by J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings stuff as well, which I would have had at the time, or some Judas Priest or whatever else, and reading 2000 AD. And I dug out my copy of, I've got one of those sort of omnibus editions of multiple Judge Dredd stories. Then the very first one that was or the very first ones that were published. I'm not for sure how long they cover, but what's cool about it is when I get about halfway through it, I start to recognise the stories that I can remember about back then reading. So that's really cool. So because I picked it up early, I'll have to do a My Life in Objects episode actually of that at some point, and maybe other graphic novel things I've got. So that's another thing that this makes me think of. But yeah, I really enjoyed this actually. Great. The slow-mo stuff's really interesting. And that opening car chase as well. You got Lena Headey, who many people will recognise from Game of Thrones. And of course Carl Urban. And I don't know what Olivia Thirlby's been in actually. Oh yeah, there's a connection. So Domhnall Gleeson, he was in wasn't he in Ex Machina? Yeah, Caleb Smith. It's interesting, isn't it, how you get these people that, seemingly, and I think this is true of Alex Garland. There's certain people I think he likes to work with, and that wasn't always the case with John Carpenter as well. I got the impression, and I'm sure it's been written somewhere, that John Carpenter had certain people that he really liked to work with and would crop up on numerous occasions in his films. I really need to watch this. I'll include some links to some of his interviews actually. Interesting guy, and I always find his interviews very thought-provoking, particularly the ones around Ex Machina. I was trying to work out which film by him I'd seen first, or he had a connection with, and it was this, Sunshine. And this I remember seeing when, I don't know if anybody ever remembers this, This may have been just a UK thing, because just the way the postal service worked at the time, I don't know if it's the same now, but it was super fast, was DVD rental by post, which I used to do through Amazon. And was it Love Films, I think? I can't remember what the sort of subdivision of Amazon, or the ones that was related to Amazon, was called. But I remember renting Sunshine. I rented a lot of really cool films, actually. That was one of my favourite periods, because I think it was actually better than streaming in some respects, because pretty much everything that was available on Amazon to buy, I always got the impression that you could rent. That's the way it felt anyway. So I at that point, I was also doing I was involved with a course on film appreciation through the Workers' Education Association in the UK. And, each week we were sort of, for homework, we had to watch a film, and then in class, if you can call it that, we'd have a discussion about filmmaking. And what I used to do is, if I couldn't be bothered to tape the film, it had to be a film that was on TV at the time, I'd actually just rent them off of Amazon, because they'd come soon enough. And some I even ended up buying. I don't remember us actually having to watch Sunshine as homework, but as a result, I tracked that down. I was also watching a lot of the old stuff that previously won Sundance Awards as well, and quite a number of Kurosawa films as well, including like really old, other really sort of old famous black and white stuff from decades, centuries ago, probably now. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, lots of interesting connections here that again I hadn't really thought of until I actually start talking about this stuff. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.